Welcome back to the CACCIA Outdoors podcast, where we talk about all things hunting and outdoors. Most things hunting and outdoors. So today we're going to be talking about our essential gear list. And if you're new to hunting, or maybe you've been hunting for a long time, or maybe you're new to backpack hunting, this is going to be a really helpful podcast for you, hopefully. We're going to go over kind of our essential items, and if you're starting to kit out your hunting equipment, where to start, what's most important to spend the most amount of money on. Because, I mean, if we're being honest, this stuff's expensive. So, I mean, it's taken us years to accrue the equipment that we have. And
we've bought a lot of things that we eventually discarded.
Right.
Waste of money. So
yeah, we've gone through quite a few different, brands and items and stuff, and just, process trial and elimination. No, wait.
Trial and error.
Trial and elimination. What's the word?
Process of elimination.
Process of elimination.
There you go.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
So hopefully by us giving you guys this information today, you won't have to do as much eliminating.
And we're going to talk about big gear pieces. So we're going to do another conversation, and we're going to talk about smaller things, maybe things you've never thought of that might make a big difference in your kit. But today is just about kind of your core, I would call it, your core pieces.
Right. Like if you're first, just for example, if you're first starting out and you're going to spend $1,000 on your gear,
how do you spend it?
What are the most important things from the top down? We're going to kind of go through that.
So the first thing I want to mention is we're not going to talk about clothing. So obviously boots are essential. We've talked about it in videos in the past. You got to have good boots.
Yep.
If you're backpack hunting, if you don't have good boots, you're done.
Yep.
It's over.
Yep. That may be your most important purchase, really, because your feet are going to win or lose the day.
I've seen one year we went hunting, and I saw this guy. He was probably in his, late 60s maybe. He was wearing a flannel button-up and blue jeans, and he had one of those old school metal frame packs, like the old school, and good boots. And that dude pulled out a beautiful 4x4 buck out of the backcountry.
Wasn't he shooting a stick bow?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think he was shooting a stick bow. He had a compound. But I just looked at his gear kit, and I kind of felt silly because, like, man, it's not all about that. We get hung up on gear a lot.
Right.
Because the industry tries to tell you have to have the latest and greatest.
There's one caveat to that. I mean, yes, I completely agree with where you're going there. But he was camping out of his truck. So
he was. That's
we
true.
backpack hunt a lot, and it's a whole different set of bananas. If you're hunting out of your truck, you really don't. I mean, you can go in jeans and a t-shirt and invest money in your bow and invest money in your boots, take a little day pack, and you're good.
Yeah.
But if you're going to backpack hunt, you need to be equipped.
If you're living out of that pack.
Yeah. For not only for comfort, but also for safety and the longevity of the hunt. So.
Yeah. So there's give and take with big, expensive gear items. There really is. Because you can spend less money and get lesser quality gear and still have a successful hunt, but something's going to suffer. There's a reason this stuff is sold. There's a reason it's more expensive. So, I mean, let's get into it. So the first thing we'll talk about is a sleep system. And we've had trial and error with sleep systems. We've had
Lots of error.
I remember the first backpack hunt we did, you had one of those those felt. What was that?
That was sound insulation from a car floorboard, bro. My father-in-law had left over from a project, and I rolled that baby up in the giant Tootsie Roll and threw it on my backpack.
And I remember you saying, "Oh, I'll be fine. I'll be fine." And then I remember after that first morning, you're like, "Man, that was miserable."
That was crazy, but I mean, that was an incredible hunt. We both shot really good bucks, and it was a good time. But yeah, that was the first evolution of my sleeping pad, was some car floorboard insulation.
And back then, that was my first backpack hunt. So I had went to REI with a buddy who did backpacking, and he basically said, "You need to buy Keen boots. Don't buy Keen boots, by the way. Keen boots. This sleeping pad. This whatever." I bought a small gear kit, just what I could afford at the time. I already had a sleeping bag, weighed like 78 pounds. And yeah, and
That's
I bought
big.
exactly. And then I bought an Osprey, I think it was a 70-liter pack. So it's like not for hunting at all.
Yeah.
Like You don't buy hunting stuff at REI, hunting
No.
gear. It's not going to happen.
No.
might
You can
buy
use it if that's all you got, and it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've done it.
We did
but
it. Yeah.
Man, the functionality is
Yeah. So sleep systems. A lot of these core gear pieces we're going to talk about, they're the biggest size consumers and weight consumers in your pack.
yeah.
And so if your goal is to become what I would call a streamlined backpack hunter, there's a couple things you're going to keep in mind. It'll be like the first and foremost things you think about. It's space and weight,
Mm-hmm.
and then functionality. But they're all kind of equally important as a backpack hunter. So you might get like I said, my sleeping bag weighed, it wasn't 72 pounds, but it was really heavy. But you can get a really nice high-end sleeping bag down. I mean, what's your new one weigh?
1.5 pounds or something.
And you just used it in Colorado when it was in the teens.
I was warm.
Yeah.
It's a marmot. Forgot the model of it. It's a marmot bag though, and it's like I think a 15-degree bag.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I mean, unless you're regularly hunting in sub-zero temperatures, if you're doing a lot of like snowy winter kind of hunting, late season stuff, then get a 0-degree bag probably. But for me, even in September, October, a lot of times I'm fine. Even in height, like we were at 12,000 feet in September, and it was snowing, hailing out, and we were in a teepee, and I was warm, taking it off warm. So.
And I have a Nemo, and as a big guy, I have to be conscious of the size of the sleeping bag. Not everything works for me. So the Nemo actually works really good because it has like a peanut shape. So I get more space in the foot box, more space around the shoulders, and I've been really happy with it. I will say, however, we just went to the sheep show in Reno, and we got to see with our own eyeballs the new Peaks. What do they call it?
I don't
Solace
know.
Or something. It's
Peak small piece of heaven.
that
looks incredible.
Sleeping bag. Oh my God. So if you are going to spend money on a sleeping bag, go buy that Peaks sleeping bag. Eventually it'll be in my gear kit too. So, and I forgot to mention, everything we're going to talk about today, like anything we recommend, I'm going to create a curated list for you with links and everything. I'm going to put it in the description on YouTube. You won't see it on Apple or Spotify if you're listening there, but you'll see it on YouTube. So you can click at any one of those links. Supports our channel too. But like I said, we don't own the Peaks, but having seen it, like the level of engineering in that thing.
Just touching it and looking at it, and at the sheep show they had a display, and you could get inside it and everything. That sleeping bag is incredible. Like the design is flawless.
It's a trendsetter. So there's nothing like it on the market.
Yep.
A few features I'll describe that I absolutely loved was the foot box. It's not a normal. So normally with a sleeping bag, you just have a seam, and you have your lower fabric or whatever, and your upper fabric with a seam around it. It's a zipper seam. Well, they created a flat foot box, so it's actually the shape of your foot. So it's like how do I describe it? If you stood it upright, it would have a flat spot touching the ground where your feet would be.
It's kind of like a triangle shape, and your feet go inside there.
So there's not that constant pressure against your feet when you're sleeping.
Like when grandma tucks the sheets too tight at the bottom of the bed, and
you wake up
feet
with toe
are
cramps.
Cardboard. Yeah.
So I loved that part of it. Another thing I liked were the armholes. So if you're hunting in really cold conditions, we all know what it's like waking up in the morning and you got to get out of that sleeping bag. Oh, that's the worst feeling.
Dreaded putting your ice cold pants on.
It's the worst. So they have these slots for your arms where you can just slip your arms through and move around. You grab your coffee, whatever you're going to do.
Get your stove going, whatever.
Yeah, or you can sit in glass with your bag on you like a jacket. Super cool.
Yeah.
But then the third thing that I loved about it was it turns into a quilt. So it has this center zipper. It opens up all the way and it turns into a quilt. So we hunt in California a lot, and it's usually hot.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had cold weather here and there, especially if we're hunting later in rifle season. But a lot of our hunting, it's hot, it's warm. So I actually have my sleeping bag and I have a quilt. I have a Zen Bivy quilt. But this Peaks bag turns into a quilt. So if I get hot when I sleep, and so I can just use it as a quilt. So yeah, like I said, eventually it'll be in my kit, but it is pricey. And it compresses down to the size of, like, what would I compare?
Football?
a little
bigger
long,
than a football.
about the circumference of a football, a little bit longer. Like, it's incredible. Weighs like 2 pounds, less than 2 pounds, something like that. Really light. Yeah, highly recommend that.
Next item.
So pad. Let's talk about sleeping pads. So there's a mix of functionality versus weight versus what works for you. Talk about yours.
So overall, quick oversight here. We're talking about like sleep system, right? Mm-hmm. Where are we getting into backpacks on this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say your sleep system. So I know we're not talking about clothing, apparel, whatever. Boots are number 1 for me. Sleep system, number 2. Mm-hmm. Next most important thing is the sleep system. So obviously we just went through the bag, and the sleeping pad is almost as important as your sleeping bag. Maybe as important. Depends on, where you are in life. If you're 25 years old or if you're 45, 50, one of those may take precedent over the other. But, the sleeping pad, get a sleeping pad that, you can go on the Google machine and look at reviews. Guys talk about what's good and what's bad. There's a bunch of them out there. Just make sure you can side sleep with it. Mm-hmm. And that's, you say, well, I'm not a side sleeper. Well, that's not the most important part. If you can side sleep on it, then the weight dispersion is really good. So my bag or my sleeping pad is a Climate. I mean, it's just like $100 sleeping pad, but I've used it for several years, patched it with, maybe it's time to get a new one, but they make pretty decent sleeping pads, and it's pretty lightweight. I want to say it's like 14 ounces or something, and I can side sleep on it. I'm a side sleeper, and I don't touch the ground. I'm only 160 pounds, so I'm not like a big, heavy dude, but I don't touch the ground, and I can side sleep, and I'm comfortable. So I think for me, that's one of the most important things, is making sure that it the weight dispersion is good.
Ask yourself this question. If your sleeping bag fell out of your pack somewhere on the trail, you lost it, it was gone. You get to camp, you have no idea where your sleeping bag is.
That's happened to me before.
It has?
Yeah.
We got to talk about that.
Yeah.
If you had your sleeping bag, your sleeping pad and your clothing, so you had your down jacket, all that stuff, could you still have a comfortable night's sleep?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, you could, as long as you were warm enough, right?
Yeah, if you got a good pad, and if you're going to be hunting cold weather, you need an insulated pad. If you're not, you probably don't. You could just use it.
So that tells you right there the importance of your sleeping pad.
Yeah.
Like it's 1A, 1B, but I would say 1A is your sleeping pad, because having that little bit of barrier between you and the ground makes a big difference. Now, I'm a bigger guy. So if you're a big guy listening to this, there were a few things that I had a Climate for a long time, and it was serviceable, but as a big guy, there were things I hated about it. Every time I would go to sleep, my arms would be on the ground. So my torso would be lifted up by the sleeping pad. My arms would be on the ground. And then my feet would be, I'm 6'3", 250. So with wide shoulders. So every night, my hands are, especially with a quilt, without a sleeping bag, keeping everything in, my arms are on the ground.
You need a big and wide pad for sure.
So I bought, now I forget, I think it's a big Agnes. No pun intended. But it's like it airs up to like 3.5, 4 inches. It's slightly heavier than the Climate because it is bigger, but it's extra wide, extra long. That's been one of the best purchases I've ever. I love it.
Yep. Game
changer in the backcountry. Yep. I can sleep comfortably with my arms on the sleeping pad. They're not hanging off. My feet aren't hanging off, and it's lightly insulated. So I had zero issues in Colorado, cold weather. Love that pad. So I got to hear this story. What's going on? So you said you lost your sleeping.
So yes and no. My buddy lost his sleeping bag. So KG and I, my buddy Kyle, this was many, many years ago. We watched too many Survivor Man episodes, right? And we were going to go do this like survival expert trip. And so we went up into the Sierra Nevadas right around like snow melt time. I want to say it was like April or something like that. And it was snow still on the ground, but it was raining. And
sounds like a good time.
Oh yeah. So we were going up to this spot, some random spot to just go hike in and, bivvy basically. No tent, nothing. We didn't bring any food. We didn't bring any weapons. We just brought sleeping bags and like a machete and a blow dart gun. Right? So
what are you going to do with a blow dart gun?
We were trying to shoot birds with it. lost all of our darts, didn't kill a single bird, ended up eating tree bark. But here's the story. We're hiking in, right? And we're using like JanSport backpacks at this point, And so we've got our sleeping bags tied onto the backpacks, and we're bushwhacking, We got the truck stuck in the snow, legitimately stuck. So we're hiking up some mountain. We're like, we're just going to go camp from here. So we just go hike up a random spot. No Onyx. It was before these days, right? We didn't know where we were. Probably on private land or something. Bushwhacking with machetes, getting through all the like young pines and stuff. And then find a spot to camp. We start making a lean-to, and then Kyle realizes his sleeping bag's gone. So we go hiking. We already forded an icy creek, all this stuff through the snow, tons of brush, probably a couple miles. Never found a sleeping bag, dude. So it's raining sideways, right? And we're going to stay there. And we make a lean-to up against this big tree. It was like a big tamarack tree. And managed to make a fire. And we cuddle up in one sleeping bag. We took turns, okay, because we had to keep it kind of open. There wasn't enough room for both of us. We had to zip it open and like cuddle, like spoon, right, to stay warm. I mean, it was like 34 degrees, raining sideways into our shelter. So we took turns like a rotisserie. When you're on the outside, you were closer to the fire, and it was your job to keep the fire alive. But at the same time, you're getting pelted with rain while you're trying to sleep. And then the guy on the inside was just like warm and cozy, except for our shelter. It was the dripping on your face. It was the most miserable night of my life. Kyle can attest to that. It was good memory, but yes, I have lost a sleeping bag on the way in one time and had to suffer the consequences. So put your sleeping bag inside your backpack.
That's a bromantic situation.
There was no bromance involved. It was straight survival. We went out there to do a survival thing, and it ended up Kyle sliced his hand, still got the scar across his hand with his machete. He was holding a sapling and cut it and just chunked out of his hand. And then like a couple hours later, we got him all bandaged up. We had the lean-to built, and we made a fire. And we found this random pot out in the wilderness. And I was by the fire, and I accidentally put my knee down on the handle of the pot. And I've still got a huge scar right here on my leg where the hot boiling water scalded my leg.
Good grief.
And so I'm like diving in the snow, like packing snow against my leg. And I didn't take my pants off until like 3 days later when we got down to the nearest Taco Bell to stuff our stomachs with some, cancer food. I pulled my pants down, and this layer of skin came off with my pants. So that was a bad deal. So anyway, good story though.
Didn't you say you had mountain lion tracks following you guys or something?
That was a different
different one.
Yeah.
Survivor Man episode 2.
Creepy too though. Yeah.
Oh man.
Anyway, yeah, good times. So put your sleeping bag inside your backpack. So that brings us to a backpack. Make sure you have a backpack that's big enough to fit your sleeping bag, right?
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Oh, pillows.
So yeah, pillows. So you said you sleep with an air pillow, right?
Yeah. So I have a Sea to Summit pillow, inflatable, and it's actually pretty comfortable. I've used it for several years, and it's really been great. Next level sleep though is I just inflate it halfway, and I steal one of my little kids. You'll see these little tiny kids like cotton pillows. They're just small, and they're about this thin, and they weigh like a few ounces. You can just like roll them up, smash them up, and jam them in your bag somewhere. That makes a world of difference for me. If you have your inflatable pillow halfway filled up, and then you put that little fluffy pillow on top of it, bro, best sleep of your life out in the backcountry.
So I've tried, I think, three different brands of air pillow. I just can't do them. They're too hard. So even if you air down, it's like a hard lump under your head, and it just doesn't. For me, it doesn't give me the support. Where I feel like my head's always being pushed in one direction. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I went to Walmart and I bought one of their travel pillows, not a neck pillow, but an actual like a miniature pillow,
like the plain pillows.
Yeah, that. And so it's just a miniature pillow. It's literally, 7 inches by 12 inches, something like that. And I've used that. And I've used that for years, and it works. And sometimes I'll put an air pillow, like you said, like half inflated underneath it.
Give you a little more loft.
Yeah, because I sleep on my back. So if there's not enough loft, my head's just cranked backwards. Mm-hmm. But that works really well for me. And it's a cheap piece of gear that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, and you can stuff those things. Oh, I'm not going to pack a pillow into the backcountry. Well, those little tiny pillows like that, like you were describing, and I don't know where you get them. Honestly, you're gonna have to ask my wife, but I stole them from my kids But there's these little baby pillows, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, 3 inches thick and about like you're describing.
Yeah. It's
like
like
a
for toddlers because they can't have a thick pillow. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of the flat, small
Works
pillows. Yeah. So, yeah, I like to have an actual pillow. And I'll bring an air pillow with me for extra support underneath that pillow. But, yeah, I like to have an actual miniature pillow in my pack. Makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, I'm going to put all this stuff, our own curated CACCIA list in the description.
Yeah, the better sleep you get, the more fun you're gonna have.
Absolutely.
If you're having a miserable night every night, like the first night's always pretty rough. I don't care what anyone says. Maybe unless you're like Ryan Lampers or something and you live in the woods. But if you're out there your first night, especially opening night, you're not gonna get any sleep anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna all excited, or you're just you're used to sleeping on your nice bed at home, and you're like, ah. But after a full day of hunting and you come back, that second night you should be sleeping pretty good. And if you're not, if you're tossing and turning all night and you're miserable, you need to upgrade your sleeping system.
Definitely. So the next thing we're going to talk about is a shelter. So our shelter journey started.
Wow. What a journey.
So the first hunt we did when Ben was sleeping with the insulation pad, the vehicle insulation pad, we had one tent that we shared, and it was a square, and it was shorter than me because my head was stuck out one end and my feet stuck out the other end.
It's like a comic.
That thing was tiny. It was a little 2-man, and for being little, it was still really heavy.
Yeah.
And we barely.
It wasn't a
fit in that
backpack
thing.
tent.
No, not.
It was a regular tent.
Yeah.
We strapped it on the backpack.
Might have been like a Coleman or something.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. But then over the years, our gear it's evolved. So then we upgraded to an actual backpacking 2-man, which was kind of a downgrade because we were still crashing in the same tent, but it's a backpacking tent, so it's smaller. So we were smashed in that thing.
It was longer, but like we were snuggling, man.
Mm-hmm. So then we split and each got a 1-man backpacking tent, and you've used that quite a bit. I've had to move away from mine, and again, like this is cool having this perspective because me being my size, you being your size, we approach gear differently. Mm-hmm. So I had this 1-man tent that I used for a little while, and it was okay. But for me, I just felt claustrophobic in that thing. I didn't have room to move around. It's pretty small. So, and I'm not a small guy. So I upgraded to a Sea to Summit 2-man, which was lighter than my 1-man. And I had the space of a 2-man tent. I really liked that tent. I still have it. But then, and you've used your 1-man. But then,
yeah, what is that tent that I use? It's a Alpine
Kelty.
No, is it a Kelty? No,
I think mine was a Kelty. I don't remember.
It's like Alpine gear or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Not MS. I don't know what it is. On research, I don't know what tent it is. I don't even know what tent.
They're like mid-grade. They're not. Yeah. They're not high.
It's like $160 tent or something.
So this year, though, we crossed over into the teepee world, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. Like this thing is awesome.
It's pretty nice. Tons of room.
If you don't mind just having a shelter, and you're cool with like rolling out a lightweight tarp, and not having an insert like a floor and all that, then a teepee, you can have all the space of a 4-man tent, literally a 4-man tent, with the weight of it's less than my 2-man Sea to Summit. Yeah, for the shell,
it's like a couple pounds.
It's less than a couple pounds less.
And yeah, I mean the pole is super lightweight, collapsible aluminum pole, and it's argali, right?
It's argali.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's super duper. We have the floor for it also.
Yeah,
which is nice if it's going to rain a lot, and you don't want to deal with diverting rainwater around the tent and stuff. You can just bring the floor. But it also the floor has net and stuff, and that adds like another pound, a little over a pound to it.
Yeah, with the whole kit put together, it's like 3.5 pounds.
But you're dividing that between two people.
Exactly.
So you each have 1.5 pounds of tent. Mm-hmm. And you have this. I mean, and if you're just doing the shell, like if you're just warm weather and you're not worried about rain and whatever, yeah, you're each carrying less than 1 pound of weight to take that tent in. Or one guy can take the tent and the other guy, whatever, camera gear or something.
If I was going to go solo, I would take the TP, just the shell, because it would be less than 2 pounds and I have tons of space.
Yeah.
I mean, all my gear will fit in there, tons of room for my sleep system. I can stand up in there, which is great.
You can put a stove in it. It has a stove jack.
Yeah, there's a stove jack. So cold weather, you can put a stove in there. It's awesome. Love the TP. So I don't know that my 2-man Sea to Summit will get much more use. I've gotten spoiled by being able to like stand up and get dressed instead of doing everything hunched over.
Yep.
So
or sitting down. I mean, in
or
my
sitting
tent, I have
down.
to sit down to do anything. It can't even be on my knees in there.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Yep.
Yeah, I've really loved the TP experience. And this, we've routinely had 3 guys in there with gear, with clothing and stuff, and had space for all 3 guys.
Yep, no problem.
In a pinch, we could put 4 guys in there, and everyone would have. It'd be tight,
It'd be
but
a pinch.
You could do it.
We'd have to put our gear somewhere else for sure.
Yeah, you would.
When we had 3 guys, this last trip we were in Colorado. And we had 3 guys. We just took all of our backpacks and stuff and stacked them on a tarp, and then burritoed the tarp around it because there was weather and stuff, and that worked fine.
Yeah,
so there was tons of room. I mean, between the 3 of us, we had enough room. So
yeah, the weight versus size ratio, you're just not going to find anything better. Nothing.
And TPs look cool. Let's just be honest. Hey, it really held up well to the weather, the wind and everything. It was rain. It was sleeting actually, like hail and stuff, and not a drop inside. And it really held up well. It didn't like blow sideways like this much at all. It was really, really good.
And it's easy to set up too. You just got the one center pole, and then you stake out your corners and middles, and just it's easy.
Yeah,
it's really easy.
Cool setup.
I love that stuff.
Go buy one. It's good for you.
Go buy one. Again, it'll be in the list. All right, next up, let's talk about packs. Packs are going to be one of the most expensive gear pieces you're going to buy. They're just expensive. The modern Hunter's pack, it's feature rich, it's lightweight, and it's pricey. You're going to spend between $700 and $1,200 probably for.
Yep.
That's kind of
depends on your pack system, who you get it from and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the KUIU system that we both use and have used for many years is, I think, mid 800s if you buy everything new, because you got to get a frame and then the bag and then like hip belts or whatever. Yeah. So we'll go into a little bit of brand stuff. The nice thing about the KUIU bags are the features are great. Honestly, I absolutely love my KUIU bag. Has great features. The frames, there's different size frames, so you can get a frame that fits your body size perfectly. And then the packs switch off and on the frames. So I have a 3800 that I use for day hiking and stuff. And then I have a 7600 that I use for backpacking, because I think both of us are a proponent of more space, more better. You know, like you can't have too much space in your backpack. Here's the thing. If I'm going to have one backpack, right, for backpack hunting, and I'm either going to get a 5,500 or a 6,000 or something, or like a 7,800. That 7,800 is only going to be like another 4 or 5 ounces, 6 ounces maybe heavier, and it's going to provide me with so much more, space and options and stuff. Yeah. So I'm always for like go with the bigger bag. You can cinch it down if you have stuff in there and too much space. But the KUIU bags have been really great, and that's really the bag I have the most experience with. But there's a lot of other brands with offerings that are incredible. I know Stone Glacier has good bags, a little heavier, but really good bags. I know, what are those guys? Kafaru has amazing bags. We've actually kind of met back and forth about getting Kafaru bags lately.
They just don't make a big enough bag with the features I want. That's my problem. That's my hang up with Kafaru. That's what I like about KUIU is that, like you said, I have a 5,600 and a 7,800.
Yeah.
That I'll switch back and forth. Like if I'm going to do a scout trip, I'll bring the 56. Yeah. On a hunting trip, I'm going to bring the 78. Yeah. I like having that extra space. And like you said, it cinches down to nothing.
Yep.
It's just fabric folded up, cinched down. That's it. It's super light, and we've hauled heavy stuff on those packs.
Oh, dude. So the last time I carried a deer out, we had 2 deer in that. I mean, well, forget the deer. We've probably had at least 200 pounds of elk in our backpacks each.
The backpack handled more than we could handle.
Yeah. So we literally, I shot a bull. Clayton and I divided that bull into both of our backpacks. I'm not kidding you. Head and everything. We both. It was a younger bull. It's probably a 2.5-year-old bull, something like that. It was in Colorado. Go watch the video. It was an archery hunt. Pretty cool. But we divided that whole elk into 2. We only went 1/4 mile before we decided that we were going to have to use a helicopter to get out if we kept doing that. So
Yeah, but we gave out. Our packs didn't give out.
No,
it
packs
was
were
us.
fine,
I
which
felt
was
like my
shocking.
knees. I felt like my knees were going to explode with that weight.
Yeah, it was way too much.
were
It was
slipping
so
on
unsafe.
mud and-
Never do that.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was-
so dumb. We just were like, it's downhill. Let's just get it out of here. We've only got 9 miles back to camp. Just push. We got a quarter mile down the road and hung it up in a tree. So, but yeah, the backpacks have been great. They're super sturdy. They have carbon fiber frames. I mean, they're great bags. But there are other offerings out there that are great. But the important thing is just go through the features you want, right?
And a couple things to consider when you're shopping for a new pack. Comfort's key. Everybody's body is a little bit different. Our bodies are really different, but we both like the KUIU pack. My setup's a little bit different than his because it fits me. His fits his body. Another thing to consider too is as you get into more expensive gear, your gear is going to shrink. So your really high end stuff is smaller and lighter. So your sleeping bag is going to get smaller and lighter. Your pad's going to get smaller and lighter. Your clothing systems, everything is small and light. So you might not need and another thing to consider too, we didn't mention is we film our hunts. So that's a lot of extra gear that we have to carry.
At least an extra probably 10 pounds of stuff.
10 pounds in space too.
Yep.
So you might not need a 7,800. You might be good with, the 5,600.
That's true. It's just second nature for us. I don't really think about it because we're always filming, but yeah, that does take up a substantial amount of space.
Like John, his is the 5,600. He has the KUIU pack. And he goes on the same hunts we do, but he doesn't have the film gear.
Yeah.
And he's able to fit everything. Now he's a minimalist. We tend to not be minimalists.
Yeah.
I like my little things here and there.
Yeah. Knickknacks.
Knickknacks. But yeah, so those are things to consider. Yeah, weight, how it fits on your body. But your boots, in my opinion, your boots and your pack are the two most important things. In his opinion, it's, what'd you say, sleep
Boots
system and
then
boots.
sleep system.
Boots
I would
first,
say sleep system second, pack third for me.
Yeah, and same top three, just in a different order for me. So your pack is super crucial if you're going to be a backpack hunter. That should be one of the first few things that you buy if you're going to be backpack hunting.
Yeah.
My first backcountry, like legit backcountry hunt, my first one was at that Osprey, but out of state hunt. My first out of state hunt was Idaho, and I got rid of the Osprey and I had a Tenzing. That was the worst pack experience I've ever had in my life. I remember
that backpack was awful, dude.
I remember being in so much pain because the straps were super thin, and when I had weight in it, they would cut into my shoulder blades. Like it felt like a knife in my shoulder. It was so painful. And I got home from that trip, threw that bag in the trash, and I thought I knew I had to upgrade. Like I can't do this anymore. This is killing my trip. I was so miserable from that pack. So yeah, those are essential gear items you have to be mindful. So last thing let's talk about is your eating system, your food and water, and your gear that goes with it. So
there's a million different options here.
There really is. The things you want to consider, and this is highly subjective when it comes to your food system. Food itself is highly subjective because everyone has different tastes, and you're going to spend a lot of your pack weight. If your goal is to stay under, let's say 40 pounds for your pack weight with no water, you're going to spend a lot of that weight on food. If you have really high end gear, you've kept it all lightweight, food's going to soak up.
Depends on how long your trip is.
Let's say a 5-day hunt, a lot of that weight's going to be food. So that's not something we're going to cover here. That's not like a core gear piece. That's subjective. But as far as your cook system and your water filtration system,
well, also, I mean, the food system. We're not going to cover food, but I keep all of my just to organize everything. We'll just go through this briefly. I put each day in its own Ziploc bag. Mm-hmm. So all my snacks, my lunch, everything for that day, some hydration sticks, whatever. All
so you basically pre-plan a menu for the time you're going to be out.
And so I know that when we get to base camp, hang everything up in a tree, and then when I'm getting ready to go hunting the next morning, I just grab a Ziploc bag out and throw it in my backpack, and I'm good. I don't have to sort through snacks and everything.
Do you keep your whole day's food in your pack for the whole day?
Yeah.
So even dinner?
No. Dinner stays at camp.
Got it. Okay.
And then if you have to bivvy out on an animal or something, then just suck it up. You're gonna be hungry. Dinner's at camp. But yeah, so I do that little thing, and then I keep all of those in like a super lightweight KUIU roll top bag. Mm-hmm. as just, my food bag. I just have a lightweight, I don't think it's waterproof, but it's just a super lightweight KUIU roll top. And I put all my food in there just to keep it in its own compartment.
And it has the strap at the end of the bag, so you can just, put a rope around it, throw it over a tree.
Yep.
It's real easy. Yeah, that's nice. And then for our heating system, we both run jet boils.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, what is the MSR?
MSR.
I had an MSR, the pocket rocket
Mm-hmm.
system, and it was okay, but I didn't like how the pot sat loose on top of the burner.
Yeah.
And it took like 3 times as long to boil water, 4 times as long. Not a bad system. It was lightweight. But when I switched to jet boil, there's no going back.
Yeah.
There's just
super convenient.
It is. So yeah, we're big proponents of the jet boil system. It's tried and true. And last but not least, water filtration. So I like to run a pump system. I use the Catadin. Did I say that right? Something like that. The Catadin lightweight pump. It's been great. So I think you use the Sawyer squeeze.
Yeah. So Clayton's system really puts out a lot of water, which is great. It's heavier, bulkier. So if you're super minimalist, I use it. I'm not super minimalist, but I know he's always got that big heavy one, so I use his most of the time. But I've got the Sawyer squeeze system. So any of the squeeze systems are great. You just fill up a bag, tighten the thing on, and then roll it down, and the water squirts out. And I mean, it takes a little longer, but you get all your water filtered, and it's safe to drink and everything. You can also use iodine, UV lights, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff out there, but you got to use something for water sanitation. I've used the Sawyer squeeze, and he's used his filter for several years, and we've never gotten sick from water ever. No. We've taken some pretty questionable water.
I've pulled it straight out of mud puddles, and It's been great.
Yeah, so I would say the one thing with the water is you want a bladder, especially if you're going to do a lot of hiking. If you're going to go to base camp and you can do a lot of sitting, bladder may not be as important. But if you're hiking a lot, it's nice to have that bladder in your backpack to drink, on the go, and you don't have to constantly mess with water bottles and stuff. But another thing to think about is like having a water storage bag for like base camp, because that is so clutch, because when you're heating up your food, you can just use your water storage bag. We usually keep like these 2 liter, 6 liter. We have several different sizes, and they're just, soft bags. So they just roll down to nothing. And then when you get to camp, you can get a water source and fill those things up and hang them at camp. And then, when you need to go unlimited water at camp, you don't have to go if you're camping far away from water. Or sometimes we have to bring them in full because some places we hunt are pretty arid, but that's a nice feature. Keep that in mind, that you have some type of water portability,
like collapsible water storage system. Yeah, that's key. Well, that covers the core essential gear pieces, and I'll put this all in a curated list down there in the description for you. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up. We'll be back in this room soon, meeting with a really cool person, having a cool conversation.
We're cool people too, though.
I mean, we're.
No, we'll have several guests coming up, so it'll be fun having some people other than us on the podcast.
Yeah,
and that'll be exciting. It's always good to hear other people's stories and interests and stuff. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. The video has been rolling out.
Yeah.
So all the hunt films from this year.
We'll have to do another podcast and talk about those. Yeah. Our experiences. The bear.
We've got a pig hunt coming up here pretty soon. California pig hunt, and then we've got possibly a javelina hunt coming up.
I can't wait
next
for that.
month.
Yeah.
So
good stuff. Scouting's right around the corner. It's gonna be a fun year. Fishing. We're gonna get back into fishing this year. Man, I miss fishing.
I know, it's a good time.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode.